Okay, guys, we're going to try another one here, and I'm going to go a little faster. So our model in this case is the cosine. So we can see already that the amplitude is 2. Now, we have to be careful here because the model says minus this phi, and this says plus 3 pi. So we have to think of that with a minus as minus negative 3 pi. So the phi is actually going to be negative 3 pi. Okay, and then this time we're also adding, sure why I put a b there. This example, we're adding 1 to the result. So we will have to do a vertical shift up by 1 after we get this part taken care of. We'll go ahead and add 1 to each of our y values. Okay, and then the other thing we have to do is find the period. So the period is going to be 2 pi divided by the 4. That's the omega. So the period's pi over 2. Okay, and then our phase shift is going to be negative 3 pi over omega. So negative 3 pi over 4, and that's where we start our points. Okay, now we have to divide our period in 4s to get from one key point to the next. So we're going to take and divide this pi over 2 by 4. So key point, I'll call it key point shift. It's going to be pi over 2 divided by 4, which will be pi over 8. Okay, so we'll start at negative 3 pi over 4. I have to add pi over 8 to that. So if this was over 8, that would be negative 6. So the next x point would be negative 6 pi over 8 plus pi over 8. So that would be negative 5 pi over 8. After that, if we add another pi over 8, it's going to be negative 4 pi over 8. And obviously this reduces to negative pi over 4. Okay, and then after that, it'll be negative 3 pi over 8. Let's see. And that's all we need. Okay, so, well, we need one more, sorry. And then the last one here is going to be negative 2 pi over 8, which is going to reduce to negative pi over 4. Okay, because this is one, I was looking at that wrong. So these are the x coordinates of the new key points. Negative 3 pi over 4, negative 5 pi over 8, negative pi over 4, negative 3 pi over 8, and negative pi over 4. Okay. Okay, now remembering what our cosine is before it's modified, we start at 0, 1, and then our next one is pi over 2, 0, and then it's pi negative 1 and 3 pi over 2, 0, 2 pi 1. So it's this loop. So what we know then is that our new start point for x that used to be a 0, 1 is now a negative 3 pi over 4, 1. And it's actually not 1 because our amplitude is 2 and it's positive. So I'm multiplying the 1 by a positive 2. So that's our first point for a single cycle of this cosine. The next one is going to be negative 5 pi over 8. And then that's going to be where the 0 happens. At negative pi over 4, we're going to get the negative 1, but with the amplitude, that becomes a negative 2. And then at negative 3 pi over 8, we hit another 0. And at negative pi over 4, we're back to 2. 1, but amplitude of 2, so it becomes a 2. Okay, I want to fix this because when I reduce negative 4 pi over 8. Somehow I reduced it to negative pi over 4, which is not correct. That would be negative pi over 2. So let's patch that up here. This is not negative pi over 4. It's negative pi over 2. But we did land in the right place here for the y. So I don't know, whenever you reduce 4 over 8, it's always going to be 1 over 2. Okay, so now we have to take care of this addition, right? So this is going to take the y component that we get from this part and add 1 to it. So that's simply going to be adjusting all of our y's up 1 unit. So I'm going to add 1 to each y. Okay, so that's going to become, now these are the points that we're going to use when we graph. So negative 3 pi over 4, 2 plus 1 is 3. Next one is negative 5 pi over 8, 0 plus 1, 1. Negative pi over 2. Adding the 1, we get a negative 2 plus 1, so that's just negative 1 now. We're adding 1 to 0, so the next one. And our last one, we're adding 1 to 2, so it's negative pi over 4, 3. Okay, so these are the points we need to graph. Okay, so let's look at our situation here. Our key point shift, the distance between key points, is pi over 8. Our phase shift was negative 3 pi over 4, so that would be negative 6 pi over 8. And so if we count by pi's over 8, we're going to count backwards until we get to the phase shift point. So this would be negative, I'll go 2 ticks for each pi over 8. So there's negative pi over 8, negative 2 pi over 8, negative 3 pi over 8, negative 4 pi over 8. So that would be negative pi over 2, negative 5 pi over 8, negative 6 pi over 8, and that's going to reduce to negative 3 pi over 4. Okay, so now we can start consulting our points that we came to. So at negative 3 pi over 4, my output is a 3, so I'll just use 1 tick. So this will be 3. So there's the start of our cycle. And then now remember this is negative 6 pi over 4, so this is negative 5 pi over 4, or I'm sorry, over 8. That's negative 6 pi over 8. This is negative 4 pi over 8. So these two reduce, but the negative 5 pi over 8 doesn't reduce. And that goes through a 1. So there's another key point. Negative pi over 2, we have a negative 1. So it's going to come down here. And then so this is negative pi over 8. This is negative 2 pi over 8, so negative pi over 4. This is negative 3 pi over 8. So we want to get to, after the negative pi over 2, negative 1, we're going to do the negative 3 pi over 8, 1. Notice we got our symmetry for this now. And then negative pi over 4, 3 ends a cycle of cosine. So remember the cosine is looping down here, it's smooth. Looping back up there and heading out for a new cycle on the other side. And so then that's going to take me down here to get to the distance of pi over 8. So I can just keep tracking this. And then the next one takes us down to, so what happened here is we went down to a negative 1. So we can expect 0 to get a negative 1. And then if I go 2 more units, I know whatever it is, it's pi over 8. And I know now that that will be a 1. And then that's enough here to kind of roll them. And we could go the same in this direction. We know that 2 over is going to put us here. So, and then the next one's down here. So we'll just do that. All right, so this is a graph of y equals 2 times the cosine of 4x plus 3 pi. add one.